not about anybody else. And to repeat what makes that clear again, the biggest ally of an alliance threatens and questions the territorial sovereignty and integrity of another ally. This is incredible. And this damages an alliance like NATO, which has been the most successful alliance in the history of mankind. So we have to remain absolutely clear in what we are doing and saying, and therefore I was so grateful, Mette mentioned it earlier, when the European allies reacted in between days, not as everybody is supposed from them in the past, like in 2 or 3 months or weeks, whatever. In 2 or 3 days, they reacted, we reacted, and sent a clear signal in any directions. Arctic is with regard to Russia and China, but it is a sovereign country, Denmark and Greenland, and that has to be respected in any context too.
Minister Anand, you mentioned the huge proportion of Canada that is Arctic. Do you feel like there is more that Canada specifically can be doing? And if so, what? You mentioned the ambassador, the Arctic ambassador, the new consulates, but is there more that Canada specifically can be doing for security?
So we aren't relying on any one other country to help us through Arctic security. We are acknowledging that the environment has changed and that we will ourselves ramp up our spending on defense and dual-use infrastructure. We are putting $80 billion into defense spending. In this economic environment, that is remarkable. We will reach 5% by 2035, but more importantly, we really need to understand that the threat environment has changed, as I said, and to elaborate on that, it is a geostrategic issue in terms of Russian infrastructure moving further north towards the Arctic Circle. But let us make no mistake that there is an economic advantage to ensuring that you have play in the Arctic. In other words, this is not just about land acquisition. This is also about mineral exploration, energy, and economic advantage that can be gained by having propriety in the Arctic. And so, whereas historically, the threat environment could be siphoned off from military, strategic/military, and then economic, and then environmental. Now, all of these individual threats are converging, and they are converging in the Arctic. And we must be eyes wide open about the fact that there is economic advantages to be gained, and Canada believes in stabilizing the supply chains for critical minerals. We also believe that we have to respect territorial integrity and sovereignty in the discussion of ownership of these resources.
Minister, you want to say something?
I just would like to add something in terms of when did we realize that the Arctic needs more of our attention? I mean, we initiated together with Canada and Norway in 2024 the Maritime Security Agreement. Denmark joined 1 year later. This is a proof of that we have seen already earlier, we prepared that already in 23, that it needs to be watched more carefully what is going on and what can we do. And Iceland will join us in the near future, and we are open for other partners in that region, in that area. North Atlantic, the high north, the access to the North Atlantic and the Atlantic in between North America and Europe is essential for our security and for our prosperity. Therefore, it is so crucial to keep control about that and not let that fall to Russia and China.
Senator, one more question before we'll go to the audience. You traveled to Greenland this past... What did you hear? What did you learn?
I learned, first and foremost, directly from the Greenlanders, that they are a very proud people, a very strong and resilient people, as the Prime Minister has noted. I knew that because I've been to Greenland multiple times, but it was reinforced to me in so many different ways. And it underscored, again, why we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland, why we respect the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Denmark as you choose the decisions that are best for the people, and we respect that will and that choice. The conversation that has been had in this past year about somehow or other acquiring, buying, taking over military force, whatever the terminology may, has distracted in ways that I don't think any of us could have anticipated, because we're talking about the security of a region. And we've been talking about it as Arctic nations for years, been taking steps. Maybe we needed to move quicker. I think we needed to move quicker. In fairness, I think the United States has actually been lagging in much of our own commitment to our U.S. Arctic. So we all have a shared responsibility in this. But when we're spending this much time talking about the situation with Greenland and whether or not the United States is going to acquire it, it takes the eye off the real issue, the real threat, which is Russia, and what Russia is doing with China. And it takes away our ability to build on these alliances that have been so strong, that are so important going forward. And it unfortunately focuses the issue of security solely on defense, when there is so much more that needs to be wrapped into the security discussion when we're talking about the Arctic. Remember, it is cold and dark much of the time. It is very isolated. In our Arctic, very small populations, we have shared challenges in terms of affordability of people to live there, how we are able to keep our young people in our Arctic communities. What are our economies? We can share so much with Greenland in terms of what it means to have a small community be taken by a cruise ship that comes to your town. You want the economy, but you want to have your own identity. We have so much to be working on. And we have been so distracted is a mild term right now. In my view, it has been offensive that this view that the United States can come in and say, we want this to a sovereign territory. That's not how major powers should act. This is not the way the United States should lead when it comes to the Arctic. This is not how we should lead when we are trying to build our alliances in an area that is so very, very, very necessary now.
Thank you so much for your clarity.
I do want to take some questions. I have one very quick one for Prime Minister Nielsen. I'm just curious, how much of your time, since President Trump has really started talking about, how much of this of your time is this taking up? I mean, is this your primary focus right now?
It is.
It is. Even still, even with the negotiations, has this become?
Yeah, as I said, this is very, very serious. And the situation is still serious. As I said, we have steps in the right direction. And that's okay. But does that mean that desire is gone and we can lower shoulders and so what? That we can do less now? No. So we are using all of our resources to protect I was about to call it friendship, but the alliance and the partnership and the respect for democracy, international law, and so on. We use a lot of resources on that.
Mm-hmm. I do want to take some questions. I saw your hand first over there.
Thank you very much. I have a question to Senator Murkowski. I wanted to ask Thank you. I'm a freelance journalist from Switzerland, and my question would be, how should we handle China's aspirations in the Arctic without creating new or more tensions? We have already tensions. From the other side, what could be like another working group, or what could we do? Thank you.
I think the answer is here. I think the answer is in greater alignment with shared Arctic interests. Demonstrate that there is no separation. There is no separation. Think about the map right now. The map, the way those of us in the Arctic look at it from above. When Finland and Sweden joined NATO, you go all the way around from Finland, who shares that border with Russia. You go all the way around the top of the globe, all the way over here to Alaska. We're so far west, we're east, which is actually true. But we are flanking Russia, and we can isolate them as they, because of their invasion of Ukraine. But it will be the strength of our shared commitment that I think makes the difference when it comes to China. But it's also going to take investment. It's going to take a focus on domain awareness, what we are able to do more cooperatively when it comes to enhanced communication. We're going to have to use the technologies that will allow us a more nimble platform in the Arctic when it comes to China.
Madam?
In Prime Minister Carney's Davos speech, he specifically called for cooperation and coordination globally on issues of mutual concern, and said that if you're not at the table to discuss these issues, then you're on the menu. And in particular, I would like, as foreign minister now, implementing the foreign policy that was outlined in Prime Minister Carney's speech, to say that this is a key example of the way in which middle powers can coordinate and cooperate so that our interests are not just voiced, but they are pragmatic actioned in terms of capability complementarity, in terms of support for issues that arise and threats that arise, as the EU came together and responded on the threat to Denmark and Greenland. These are examples, the way in which we can work together, and we cannot lose sight in this geopolitical environment of the importance, value, and necessity of working together, cooperating and coordinating at every turn through existing multilateral alliances and alliances that arise as necessity causes alliances to be formed.
Sir? Sorry, I'm making you run through the crowd here.
I just want to talk about, a lot of this seems to be different sets of facts. Some people are saying there's loads of Chinese and Russian activity around Greenland, and other people are saying no, or at least not now. Can some of the differences of opinion politically be resolved by having common picture of what the facts are?
It would be too easy.
That's great.
I mean, that does seem like a fact, right? Whether there's ships or presence or not.
This is a good point.
And the facts are, madam, they're...
We have the facts. Of course we have.
Sir?
Thank you for this opportunity. I don't want to damage the environment here because I'm from China, indeed. I would like to say, I understand now, this time, some American and European, you try to repair the transatlantic relations. But I think it could be out of logic and reason that to take China as a so-called threat and to help you get some more cooperation in Arctic. I think, yes, especially the Madam Senator, in your accusation against China, I think mostly because of you think that China and Russia, they are a kind of, close relations. And also some other, I think, based on the imagination. Even, Minister, you think, okay, you have fact. But I think it depends on how about the judgment from our Greenland people. I think that not only just cooperate with Russia. For a long time, China has been looking for any opportunity to cooperate with Nordic countries, including Denmark. So my question is, now if we try to touch the real point of the issue is, once there are some more militarization of Greenland, and then expand to Arctic region, I mean more and more militarization, what will happen? Also, American lady mentioned, okay, there will be some confrontation, NATO and Russia in Arctic region. What will happen, and especially what will happen for the whole world? Because as we know, more and more fragmentation of geopolitical tension or some other. Thank you.
Does anyone want to take that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from a Greenlandic perspective, we are very, very clear on what we want. We want to be a part of the Transatlantic Alliance. We want to be a part of NATO, and we want to cooperate very closely with countries that shares our values. Values of international law, democracy, and so on. It's a very clear answer from a Greenlandic perspective. And we are ready to cooperate with anyone that we think shares our values. And in terms of the security aspect, in some of your question, it was like you mentioned that maybe China was a tool in the debate to ramp up in the Arctic region. And somebody also said today that it's not only security, there's much more in that. In Greenland, we agree on we need to do more on Arctic security. In Greenland, we also agree on that we have a responsibility with our geographical placement. Like you said, the map still looks the same, right, Lisa? We need to do more on security, surveillance. It's and we are perfectly aligned on that with our friends, and we also see examples now with the Arctic Century and so on. That's something we in Greenland agree on perfectly. But to state it clear, we cooperate with everyone we think shares our values. That's maybe the most important.
Right here. There's a... Thanks.
Oh, thank you. My name is Karsten Friis. I'm a research professor at the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs. Thanks for your comments. My comment and a question, if I may, very quickly. First, a comment. I work on security and defense matters, and in a way it's welcome that we get this focus on the Arctic, but at the same time, it takes away attention from Ukraine, which is unfortunate. So we need to be balanced here, right? It's an ongoing war, which is extremely important. So while we still have to address the Arctic, let's not forget about the real thing. My question is to Pistorius, and I think you will like my question, because I wanted to know what Germany is planning to do in defense side to engage more in the Arctic in the future. You like that one, right?
I like the answer. That is the question, and even more the answer. And I will give you the 20 euros later. But to be serious, well, it is about what I elaborated earlier. It is about joint security, and you mentioned Ukraine in the same context. And to make it absolutely clear, what I'm talking about, or I've been talking about, is we need in NATO a 360-degree view on the threats in the world. It is the eastern flank, of course. This is our priority one in Middle Europe, of course. It couldn't be different. Ukraine is showing us what's going to happen if we don't pay attention to what is going on. At the same time, we have the threats in southern Europe, like migration, terrorism, Islamistic terror, and so on. And we have the high north, which is, I couldn't have described it better than you, of course. I mean, the map is the same, and the map is absolutely clear. So what we need to do is, we need to do jointly everything we can do to cover the protection we need on the NATO territory and in the neighborhood. This is our task. This is a huge task. Therefore, I'm quite convinced that 3.5% for defense in the years to come, for core defense, will never be enough, because the challenges are increasing at the moment. It is about deterrence, not defense in the first place, but deterrence. We need to be able to deter our adversaries. And to that Chinese colleague, is he still there?
I think he took off.
You need to go, okay. Well, China is not the first threat in the Arctic at the moment, but they are present and they are moving ahead more strategically than the Russians in a totally different manner. But the Russian presence is impressive. And the northern fleet of the Russian Federation is impressive and is even growing in times like that while having a war against Ukraine. So this is what we have to be concerned about. And of course, Germany, Denmark, Spain, Italy, France, we are all challenged to take part in what is necessary to protect our territory.
Maybe just to add one thing, I totally agree, but this is a very tough message to all Europeans. I mean, we have to be able to tackle more crises at the same time, because the old world is not coming back. And I mean, and everything is interlinked. So the war in Ukraine has never been about Ukraine. Yeah, it's those who are suffering, but it's about Russia. And it's about Russia's imperial dreams, and the same goes for the Arctic region. This is not about the Arctic region, it's about Russia's imperial dreams. The hybrid war against Europe that is going on every day has to be tackled at the same time as the war in Ukraine and the Arctic. By the way, the door is totally open for Russia now in the Sahel region. We are out of it. So our problems with terrorism, it's not on top of mind right now. I can promise you they are going to return, and probably they will return at the same time as something is going on the eastern flank. So it's a new, I mean, forget about tackling one crisis. Yeah. We have to be able to tackle all of them at the same time. And I'm sorry to say, I think it's a part of the strategy from different parts of the world right now to throw as many conflicts, as many discussions, as many tweets, as many messages as possible on the table at the same time, so everybody's running around like a chicken without head. And therefore, when you were asking, it's a very good question, how much time do we spend on responding? Too much? So there are two very important lessons learned. As Europeans, you cannot build your strategy on what other people are doing. So was there like a European moment this January? Yes, there was. And now our obligation is to transform that Greenlandic European moment into a European strategy. And I think this is extremely important. The other lesson learned is that when we stand together, and when we are able to respond as effectively as others, then the markets react, and then changes will be seen in the political messages from US.
I'm so sorry. I know we have more questions, but we are out of time. You all are wonderful to come in here. It's Saturday night. It's been a long few days with a lot of information. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minute.